welcome to today. I'm sorry again, it's late, but today has been manic, and I'm sure you might hear my children in this video because that's been one of those days. So, with that notwithstanding, we will have some Bible reading and some reflection, and then we will finish with a prayer that I know I need. So I hope it's helpful. So Luke chapter 23 from the Message version. Then they all took Jesus to Pilate and began to bring up charges. They said, "We found this man undermining our law and order, forbidding taxes to be paid to Caesar, setting himself up as Messiah King." Pilate asked him, "Is this true that you're King of the Jews?" "Those are your words, not mine," Jesus replied. Pilate told the high priests and the accompanying crowd, "I find nothing wrong here. He seems harmless enough to me." But they were vehement. "He's stirring up unrest among the people with his teaching, disturbing the peace everywhere, starting in Galilee and now all through Judea. He's a dangerous man, endangering the peace." When Pilate heard that, he asked, "So, he's a Galilean?" Realizing that he properly came under Herod's jurisdiction, he passed the book to Herod, who just happened to be in Jerusalem for a few days. Herod was delighted when Jesus showed up. He had wanted for a long time to see him. He'd heard so much about him. He'd hoped to see him do something spectacular. He peppered him with questions. Jesus didn't answer, not one word. The high priest and religion scholars were right there saying their piece, strident and shrill in their accusations. Mightily offended, Herod turned on Jesus. His soldiers joined in, taunting and jeering. They dressed him up in an elaborate king costume and then sent him back to Pilate. That day, Herod and Pilate became thick as thieves, always before they had kept their distance. Then Pilate called the high priest, rulers and others and said to them, "You brought this man here to me as a disturber of the peace. I examined him in front of all of you and found there was nothing to your charge, and neither did Herod, for he was sent back here with a clean bill of health. It's clear that he has done nothing wrong, let alone anything deserving death. I'm going to warn him to watch his step and then let him go." At that, the crowd went wild. "Kill him! Give us Barabbas!" Barabbas had been thrown in prison for starting a riot in the city and for murder. Pilate still wanted to let Jesus go, so he spoke out again, but they kept shouting back, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" He tried a third time, "But for what crime? I found nothing in him deserving death. I'm going to warn him to watch his step and let him go." But they kept at it. A shouting mob demanding that he be crucified, and finally they shouted him down. Pilate caved and gave them what they wanted. He released the man thrown in prison for rioting and murder, and they gave them Jesus to do with him whatever they wanted. As they led him off, they made Simon, a man from Cyrene, who happened to be coming in from the countryside, carry the cross behind Jesus. A huge crowd of people followed, along with women weeping and carrying on. At one point, Jesus turned to the woman and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, don't cry for me. Cry for yourselves and your children. The time is coming when they'll say, 'Lucky the women who never conceived. Lucky the wombs that never gave birth. Lucky the breasts that never gave milk.' Then they'll start calling to the mountains, 'Fall down on us,' calling to the hills, 'Cover us up.' If people do these things to a live green tree, can you imagine what they will do to dead wood?" Two other, both criminals, were taken along with him for execution. When they got to a place called Skull Hill, they crucified him, along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Dividing up his clothes, they threw dice for them. The people stood there staring at Jesus, and the ringleaders made faces, taunting. He saved others. Let him save himself. The Messiah of God. Ha! The chosen. The soldiers also came up and poked fun at him, making a game of it. They toasted him with sour wine. So you're the king of the Jews? Save yourself. Printed over him was this sign. This is the king of the Jews. One of the criminals hanging alongside cursed him. Some Messiah you are. Save yourself. Save us. But the other one made him shut up. Have you no fear of God? You're getting the same as him. We deserve this, but not him. He did nothing to deserve this. Then he said, Jesus, remember me when you enter your kingdom. He said, don't worry, I will. Today you will join me in paradise. By now it was noon. The whole earth became dark, the darkness lasting 3 hours, a total blackout. The temple curtain split right down the middle. Jesus called loudly, Father, I place my life in your hands. Then he breathed his last. When the captain there saw what had happened, he honoured God. This man was innocent, a good man and innocent. All who came around as spectators to watch the show, when they saw what actually happened, were overcome with grief and headed home. Those who knew Jesus well, along with the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a respectful distance and kept vigil. There was a man by the name of Joseph, a member of the Jewish High Council, a man of good heart and good character. He had not gone along with the plans and actions of the council. His hometown was the Jewish village of Arimathea. He lived in alert expectation for the kingdom of God. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Taking him down, he wrapped him in a linen shroud and placed him in a tomb chiselled into the rock, a tomb never yet used. It was the day before the Sabbath just about to begin. The women who had been companions of Jesus from Galilee followed along. They saw the tomb where Jesus' body was placed. Then they went back to prepare burial spices and perfumes. They rested quietly on the Sabbath, as commanded. Feels weird to be back to the Easter story again. It feels like such a long time since we had Easter. And Easter felt bizarre in its entirety too. I remember starting off Lent and then the world changed so completely. And yeah, it just struck me, because as we've gone through this gospel together, how we're back to the story of Jesus' crucifixion, and we're back because we're thinking now about Pentecost. So, the seasons have changed. All the while we've been in this strange situation, and it's, I don't know, it seems like an interesting time to just pause and reflect upon that sort of changing of times. And if we think about it, the crucifixion of Jesus and then Pentecost, which we're about to go on to, is indeed a huge time of changing for the disciples who have followed him for 3 years. They've given their lives, they've given up their livelihoods, and all of a sudden everything has changed. I don't know about you, but I find change really frightening. I might have said before, I like the same thing. I'm so weird that I'll, like, does anybody else, like, if you go on holiday or something, or go to the same building, have the same toilet that you always go in? You always go in that one because it's that one. Now, I do know that we have plenty of people that have their favourite pew in church or their favourite seat in church, and they always sit in that one. And it's like, how long How long is it before that becomes the thing, the one? Change is really difficult, and particularly when it happens and it's not really in your control. It's not something that you have say in. And right now, with the world the way it is, it's changing, and it's changing in a way that isn't going to then go back to normal. There'll be something different. So yeah, I suppose that's just got me thinking today about those disciples. And we do see that they try and go back to what they knew. We do know that. But despite the fear, despite the catastrophic, that's the word, way that they entered this new phase, they rose to it. Because that's, I suppose, the power of this Holy Spirit within them, isn't it? That they get all that they need to be able to face the changes. Are we trusting that we will get all that we need to face the changes that are coming for us? What do you think? Let's pray together. Mother God, who cares for us as children who are so wanted, so longed for, we pray that we would feel that love as we embark in difficult times and changing times. Help us feel that we are not left alone and bereft, but God, during these changing circumstances, you will provide us all that we need. May we have trust and hope in your faithfulness, in your abundant provision for us. Things may not look ever like they did before, but God, there is so much hope in you. So we, for this moment, give once again our cares, our anxieties, our frustrations to you, and ask that you would be our sustenance. You would be our light and our destination, and that we will cling to that hope, even in uncertain times. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.